you're staring at the microwave? Why you're staring at the microwave?
I'm thinking like David Hume, the philosopher.
The guy who doubted everything?
Exactly. Hume said that all our knowledge comes from experience, what he called impressions. Our ideas are just faint copies of those impressions, and what we call cause and effect isn't guaranteed. It's just a habit.
Okay, but what does that have to do with the breakfast?
Well, how do I really know this bread will turn into toast when I push the button?
Because it always does. That's just how microwave works.
Sure, it always has. But you would say that doesn't prove it must work again. We only expect it because we've seen it before.
So you're saying that the toaster might surprise us? Like what? Turn the bread into a pancake?
Why not? There's no logical contradiction in imagining it.
See? Habit may not be logic, but it sure makes good breakfast.
True, maybe Hume was right. We don't live by certainties, we live by habit. Good day, everyone. I am Miguel Alejandro Q. Ong, and I'll be one of your speakers for today's presentation. I'll be guiding you through the key ideas of David Hume and how they connect to our topic on epistemology.
And I am Sofia Raven Onakpil, your other speaker for this presentation. Together with Miguel, I'll be explaining Hume's arguments, giving examples, and helping us see why his ideas about knowledge are still important today.
Imagine this. How do we really know the sun will rise tomorrow? We've seen it happen every day. But is there absolute proof that it must happen again? The simple question captures the heart of epistemology, the study of knowledge, its nature, its source, and its limits.
One of the most influential philosophers to tackle these questions was David Hume. Born in 1711 in Edinburgh, Scotland, Hume is often placed alongside Adam Smith as one of Scotland's greatest thinkers. He is known for his skepticism, his belief that experience shapes our knowledge, and his claim that feelings often drive us more than reason. His book, An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, explores how we form beliefs about the world and why certainty is often beyond our reach.
Hume's major work, An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, explores how we form beliefs about the world and what we can or cannot truly know. In this presentation, we'll use Hume's inquiry to explore 7 key objectives: a brief introduction to epistemology, the analysis of statements, theories of truth, rationalism and empiricism, sources of knowledge, types of knowledge claims, Hume's analysis of knowledge claims.
Epistemology is a branch of philosophy that asks, what is knowledge? How do we know something? Can we ever be truly certain?
In section 1 of the Enquiry, Hume talks about 2 kinds of philosophy. The first is a philosophy which is practical, simple, and helps us to live a better life, kind of like a modern self-help or common sense advice. The second is abstract philosophy, which is harder because it digs deeper into the mind, asking difficult questions about how we think and what we know.
Hume acknowledges that abstract philosophy can feel complicated and intimidating, but he insists that it's important because if we don't carefully study human understanding, we risk building science and beliefs on weak foundations. In short, epistemology is about getting clear on how we know what we know.
Hume is famous for dividing all statements into 2 categories: relations of ideas and matters of fact. This is often called Hume's fork.
Relations of ideas are necessary truths. They are discovered through thought alone, and they are always certain. Examples are mathematics and logic. A triangle has 3 sides, or 2 plus 2 is equals to 4. Denying them is impossible without contradiction.
Matter of fact, on the other hand, are statements about the world. For example, the sun will rise tomorrow, or this bread will taste sweet. This depends on experiences, not logic, and their denial is always possible. We can imagine a world where the sun does not rise, or where bread tastes sour.
This distinction shows that only relations of ideas gives us absolute certainty. Matters of fact are never guaranteed. And most of human knowledge, science, history, and daily life falls under matters of fact.
Hume never uses the phrase theories of truth, but his ideas connect to 2 important theories.
First, the correspondence theory of truth. A statement is true if it matches reality. For example, it is raining outside. Is true if we look out the window and see rain. Another is when we say the apple is red. It is true if we look and see that the apple's color is red. This matches Hume's idea that matter of fact must be grounded in impressions or experience.
Second, the coherence theory of truth. A statement is true if it fits consistently with other beliefs. For example, if we believe in gravity and motion, it's coherent to also believe that dropping a ball will make it fall. Another example is that if we believe in thermodynamics, it's coherent to also believe that when solar panels absorb light from the sun, it converts it to electrical energy. Hume suggests that we often trust beliefs because they fit with other experience we've had.
Importantly, Hume is skeptical about certainty. Even if our beliefs correspond with experience and cohere with other ideas, they are still based on habit, not absolute necessity.
During Hume's time, philosophy was divided between 2 camps: rationalist and empiricist. Rationalists argued that knowledge comes from the reason alone, while empiricist believes that the knowledge comes from experiences.
Hume strongly rejected rationalism. For example, you can simply think your way into knowing that fire burns. No amount of logic will tell you that. You only know it through experience, by feeling the heat or seeing something burn. Another is that the sum of all angles of the triangle is always 180 degrees. You don't have to measure all triangles in the world. Reason tells you.
Hume sides with empiricism. He says all knowledge originates in impressions, vivid, direct experiences, and ideas, which are faint copies of impressions. For example, the impression of tasting a mango gives rise later to the idea of a mango when you remember it. Another is how your phone works. It is something you learn through observation and testing, not simply through rational deduction.
Hume also criticizes rationalist claims about necessary connections. When one billiard ball hits another, we don't see some invisible force of causation. We only see one ball move, then the other. Our mind supplies the idea of cause and effect because of habit.
Hume identifies two main sources of knowledge: impressions and ideas. Impressions are strong, direct sensory inputs like hearing music or feeling heat. Ideas are the weaker copies of impressions, like remembering a song or imagining it.
This leads to Hume's famous copy principle. Every genuine idea can be traced back to an impression. If you can't find an impression behind an idea, then the idea is meaningless.
For example, if someone talks about a mystical force that has no basis in experience, Hume would dismiss it as meaningless. By this rule, philosophy should be grounded in lived experience, not abstract speculation.
From this, Hume identifies different types of knowledge claims.
First, demonstrative knowledge, which is certain like math or logic. Example, 7 times 6 is 42. Second, probabilistic knowledge based on matters of fact, which are always uncertain. Example, the sun will rise tomorrow.
And third, casual claims. These are formed through repeated experiences, leading us to expect one event after another. For example, we believe striking a match causes fire because we've seen it happen many times. But there is no logical necessity, only habit.
This shows how fragile human knowledge is. Outside of math and logic, our knowledge is never certain, only probable. So, why do we still believe in matters of fact if they are uncertain? Hume answers, because of custom or habit.
Our mind naturally forms expectations after repeated experiences. If the sun has risen every day, we expect it tomorrow. If bread has always tasted sweet, we expect it will again. This is not the reason, it's psychology.
This leads to Hume's famous problem of induction. There is no logical proof that the future will resemble the past. We just assume it will, because our minds are trained to expect it. In other words, human knowledge is grounded not in certainty, but in habit. To conclude, David Hume shows us that human knowledge is limited. All ideas come from impressions. Only logic and math are certain. Everything else, from science to daily life, is built on probability and habit.
This doesn't mean we should give up on knowledge. Instead, it reminds us to be humble. We live by experience, expectations, and custom. Hume's philosophy teaches us to question certainty, but also to appreciate how human nature adapts to live and act, even without perfect proof.
Thank you for tagging along in David Hume's An Inquiry in Human Understanding.